Hello, Canva. How are we today? I can't hear you. I'm not going to do it again. No worries, guys. Thank you all so much for coming to our session today. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Canva, and Fast Company as well for having us. We're going to have a lot of fun up here. And for a very niche group of people online, this is the collab of the century, okay? So if you're one of those people, we love you. Thank you. But yeah.
Thank you, Elliot. So we've known each other for like 4 years online now, and it's been pretty crazy over the years seeing the design community grow. And it's our first time meeting after all these years of knowing each other. So if you're wondering who we are and you don't have the privilege of not being chronically online, we can introduce ourselves more formally. So, my name is Kel Lauren. I'm a graphic designer. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm based out of Portland, Oregon. I primarily specialize in merchandise design. So I'm doing t-shirts for your favorite band, your friend's favorite band, your daughter's favorite band, and most importantly, your dad's favorite band. So I'm gonna pass this to you.
Hello, everyone. I am Elliot Olm, aka Elliot is a cool guy online. I use he, him pronouns. That's me. I am wearing exactly what I'm wearing in that photo. I forgot to do that. My bad. I make like funny graphic design posters. That's kind of my main thing on Instagram, kind of taking the piss out of an industry that takes itself a bit too seriously. Yeah, graphic design is being serious, nodding our heads. Yeah, we all know this. So I just try and make it a bit more lighthearted and poke fun at it. I also make YouTube videos as well, which is where I first knew Kel from seeing their videos online. And now I joined the scene, and we are both titans of graphic design YouTube. But yeah, that's pretty cool. So what are we here to talk to you about today, Kel? What do we,
I don't know. It's impossible to say.
Unfiltered design trends, all right? We are going to use a lot of swear words and talk about design trends. That's the goal. No, not at all. We basically just want to go through the Canva trend report, right? There's a trend report that comes out every year going through like the top 5 design trends for that year. Much like a lot of other blogs, a lot of other YouTube videos about trends, it can be quite hard to unpack. So we're here to kind of help unpack that for you, see if we believe that these things are truly trending or not, and how you can use them in the future, right? So let's get right into it. The first trend, Kel.
All right, so the first up on our list is motion collage. And we've seen a lot of collages before. They've been around since the early 20th century, specifically from Dadaism, an art movement that was a rejection of conventional art styles of the modern age. And in my personal experience, I started encountering this style in the late 2000s, early 2010s Tumblr. And it's also kind of how we ended up with cartoons. Cartoons are really just motion collages. But, Elliot, do we think this is like trending?
Next.
Okay.
Next up is flow and form. So this is very much like focusing on like kind of organic shapes, going back to nature. We're getting rid of kind of like that minimalist era coming out of like the early 2010s and stuff, like with the grids and the squares. Like what if we took those grids and squares and we made them like wobbly and stuff? Yeah, we're on the same page here. So yeah, like we've seen this in art history. Like you can see we've got some images of like Matisse's work back in the past. And that yellow little object right there is quite Matisse. And I found that right on the Canva website itself, guys. So it's all inspired by each other. It's all definitely been around before. But we can definitely, get a sense of a more modern version of it. But Kel, do we think this is trending?
I guess, but I'm not entirely sure if it's trending.
Yeah.
Next up is surrealism. We're all fairly familiar. If you've had the curse of studying any sort of art history, you're familiar most famously with the melting clock from Salvador Dali. Surrealism came about after World War I, where artists were more focusing on reimagining the subconscious and what that might translate to the art world. So things got a little weird for a bit. But I don't know. Do we think this is trending?
Next. I'm very straightforward. So this Pixelation is the next one, right? So this is one that Canva predicted. And I think we are seeing a lot of this around right now. This is like playing on kind of our love for nostalgia, right? Like, I think like a lot of nostalgic designs in the past have been that kind of like retro 80s magazine kind of style that we've seen a lot of. So it only makes sense that as time passes, that sense of nostalgia will evolve. And now it's kind of coming into that like late 90s, early 2000s, like sense of pixelation. So we're seeing this a lot more in like just design styles, and I think typefaces a lot. You might have seen a lot of pixelated typefaces recently. So yeah, it's coming around. Kel, do we think this is trending?
I don't know. It's impossible to say.
Yeah.
Now, this is my favorite trend that we're going to talk about of this section. Bold rebrand is, I guess, what we're calling it. The main thing about this is the type. We're focusing a lot on really effective bold type. And when we think about the history of typography specifically in the US, I think the best example we have of the civil rights movement in the 1960s up through the 1970s during the Vietnam War protests, we saw a lot of these protest signs being made mostly in church basements with hand-laid type. And when we look at these up here in particular, we're focusing on easy to read, easy to replicate, make in mass numbers. And someone I want to point out is this lovely gentleman down here in the corner. His name is Trey Seals. He's a black type designer, and he has dedicated a large portion of his career of revitalizing these typefaces that we associate from the civil rights era movement. So up here in the corner are some of my favorites that I use very frequently. And if you want to support a black typographer specifically, you can go to Vocal Type, his type foundry. He didn't pay us to say this, I just love him. But you can go and buy these typefaces directly, and you can upload them and use them in Canva. But do we think this is trending?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do think we are seeing a lot of this around.
This is evergreen.
Yeah. But you're probably wondering as though, like, we've been kind of hesitant on answering, like, whether or not these things are trending right. And I think that's pretty clear because as graphic designers who are kind of, like, hyper-aware being online and stuff, like, what is trending is really kind of hard to pinpoint. And I think, like, an industry that's moving at a pace that, like, you can't really determine what is, like, these are micro trends. These are things that, like, you can jump onto for a bit. And also things that, like, require a lot longer to kind of fully develop, yeah? So what's the one trend, like, what's the one thing that we think we can see, and we have seen a lot of recently, that we could say is truly trending?
Yeah, I think thinking outside of what we do in our day-to-day, we have to start thinking about the best way to keep in touch with our customers. And generally, we associate that with staying in touch with the latest trends, and that might be seeing what's on TikTok. Or we could be thinking about how our trend mindset translates to our relationship with our customers, and in our case, our viewers, our audience, and is our product that we are delivering a trend? Is this something that our customers will use long term, or is it just a fad for a bit? And I want to think about how our approach to marketing these products can have an effect on the customer's relationship with the product that we're delivering to them. So we all know it's really easy to get new eyes on our product, but the hard part is keeping them around. So how do we do that, Elliot?
Yeah, what's like one thing that we can like succinctly summarize all of that into like one trend, right? One catchy name that we could put on a bunch of blogs and stuff that would just make sense, right? So say it with us, everyone. One small thing. Building and cultivating strong, effective relationships with creative people. Nice and short,
what you were thinking,
guys. Nice
definitely.
Very short, okay? So what does this mean, Kel? What does this mean?
Well, can we get a show of hands if you consider yourself like a working creative?
Oh, nice.
All right. It can be like anything, you know, we make art, design, music. And how many of you who didn't raise your hands, have creative people generally on your team. You have to work with people like us every day. All right, bless so. All right. Nice to see.
Yeah. So basically, what we're asking, like, what is the need for like strong relationships with creative people? Like, why do we need to develop these kind of relationships, right? And the simplest answer is that like creative people essentially make the world go around. Yeah, there was a lot of love for creatives in that first speech today, which was very nice to see. And I think like a world where potentially the role of the creatives kind of slipping away. And as like creative people, as graphic designers, content creators in the industry, it obviously is something that we are trying to like hold on to and show that like there is a purpose still in the way that we think, especially. I think creative people think in very different ways, so it's like nice to have that. Yeah.
And I want us to think again about every piece of media we consume on any given day. So that could be any TV show you watch, a movie, a book, an app, a website that you visit, a mural that you pass by on your way to work. And maybe it's the clothes that you're wearing right now, the music you listen to on your way here, the furniture in your house, the way your house was designed. If you think about it, creative people really make our lives beautiful. We are in every inch of your life.
And it's interesting as well, like another thing, like creative people, I think, get the most pushback when it comes to presenting their ideas, right? Like the amount of times I think that back when I did client work, I don't anymore because content works well and I just didn't enjoy the client experience, you know, but what I would used to do is things like, you'd get asked to do like a logo or a post or whatever, and you'd say 3 options, right? And I'd work a whole bunch of time, and maybe some of you have done this before, spend most of my time working on the first option, and then about 5 minutes on option 2, and 5 minutes on option 3, and that first option was still rarely chosen, right? The one that you think that you believe in, the one that you can go, this is the one that'll work, I'm certain on my vision, here you go, and here's 2 others, and then the client will go, you know, option 3? Arial, that's a good font. That's a nice choice, right? And you're like, this is, number 1 was custom. Number 1 is completely custom. So it's, I think a lot of what we're going to talk about today is kind of like trusting that creative vision and seeing where that kind of can take you as clients and also as graphic designers, like feeling that need to be like empowered in the design community and get a sense of like that your ideas are worth believing in. Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes down to one kind of main word that we've been talking about a lot, and one thing that we genuinely think is the trending thing, a lot of you would notice as well, and that is, of course, authenticity. Yeah.
So empowered creatives are the best way to find genuine authenticity. Authentic relationships with creatives lead to authentic content, authentic products, authentic marketing. And authenticity is like the dream for brands to achieve, but it's kind of impossible to do without relying on creatives. Brands are never going to be the ones who start these trends. It's always going to come from some artist first.
Yeah. And authenticity plays a lot into like our roles as content creators as well. Like I think we are kind of living proof that authenticity and focusing on authenticity kind of works in a content scheme. A lot of the gigs that I've kind of been offered online can range. Like the brief can range a lot in terms of like whether the client has their own vision that they kind of want to just like funnel any kind of creator into, or one where they kind of will communicate with me and see what the best option for the role is. Like a good example is like, I just did some work with Minecraft, right? And the brief was super simple. It was basically play Minecraft and design something inspired by your experience. They found 10 different artists from around the world with 10 different kind of styles, and we all got to work together to make 10 different pieces. Great brief, everyone had a good time, we all met in person, and it was like just a fun kind of project overall. Whereas another one I've done was, I won't name the product or anything, I mean, I didn't have to do it, I politely ignored the email, but it was just a very simple thing of like, they had made this song and they wanted you to kind of take this product and do a little dance with it and make a little sketch and then pass it on to the next person, right? And I remember seeing the email kind of go through my inbox and then seeing the actual content live on TikTok. And there's kind of a a lifelessness behind the eyes of the creators doing this stuff, right? And it's because we've all been there, like as content creators. There are just things that kind of feel outside of your scope and outside of what you can offer. So yeah, I think content creation is really big on that. Would you say, Kel, that authenticity has led you to success online as well?
Oh, definitely. When I think about how much the design space has grown, particularly in the past 4 years, I think about how many new design content creators have been cursed to join us in this really weird niche of the internet. And I think it's so nice to see. And when we're thinking about what we're bringing to these audiences and what differentiates us from any type of content creator, and I think something that both of us are really strong at is we're both very authentically ourselves. We have a very open and free approach, particularly to graphic design, but we have non-graphic designers in our audience who are just here to hang out, and they just like our vibe. A lot of people use our videos to fall asleep at night. And so it's really cool that authenticity has this capability of pulling in so many people, so many diverse groups of people who might not necessarily be there just for graphic design. And that's really, really powerful and really cool to see.
And I think it translates to design styles as well. I think a lot of questions that we get asked, I'm sure, are like, how do you find your style? Kind of like, what is the process of getting something that you can say is quite unique to yourself? I remember the best advice I was given back in 2019 when I was just starting out my page was I messaged a creator who was doing a Q&A, and I was basically just like, how did you get your style, essentially, the classic question. And they just replied and said, be yourself, right? Which is something that I'd never really considered. It's a simple answer. They kind of tell it to you for whatever kind of profession you're in. But to think of graphic design as a form of self-expression, right? And something that you can be yourself in and be authentic in while you're designing has, I think, been reflected in a lot of the choices that I do. I'm sure you're the same. When I design, I'm kind of thinking, is this what I want, or is this what I think will look good? And I think when I do YouTube videos, when I make short form content, all that stuff, I go is this truly something that I want to do, or do I think that this will just do well? And almost all of the time, it's the things that truly feel like it's me and they're authentic to me. Those do so much better than any of the other stuff that goes out there.
Absolutely. So when we're thinking about all of this and talking about cultivating these strong relationships with the creative people in your life, we kind of have to think about what are some tangible action items? What do we actually need to do to get the ball rolling on making creative people not want to rip their hair out working with non-creative people? So we're going to start with some don'ts. Maybe we stop doing these things.
We all know this phrase, okay? It's a simple phrase. It was mentioned, I think I had a count. I was going to start a little notes page on my phone while watching the talk this morning. I think it was mentioned 3 times in this morning's talk. So it's still around. It stood the test of time. It's quite amazing. But obviously, making the logo bigger is something that I think a lot of clients are assumed to say. I used to think that this was just a joke, and once it became a joke, we kind of got over it. And then I was once asked to make the logo bigger, I think 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, we're still doing this? This is cool. Just a basic thing, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. Studies have shown it. It doesn't work. It's not the best advice that I think graphic designers really want to hear, and it's quite a technical change. But basically, yeah, this isn't anything that's going to make your brand more memorable, right? Making the logo bigger. If anything, I think it's more important to make the brand feel a bit more invisible, right? And it's attached to the thing rather than directly slapped on top of it. So yeah, it's a running joke. If you tell a graphic designer to make the logo bigger, I will receive a message from that designer being told that they were told to make it bigger. I get a lot of stories. So yeah, just a reminder, we don't do this one anymore.
And if you have unfortunately told a graphic designer on your team that you would like to make the logo bigger, please know you were made fun of in the company Slack. So, open space is not open real estate. This is actually called negative space. It's an effective way to communicate tone to your customers and also a really good way at drawing to a particular focal point. So if you have told a designer there is too much open space in a project and it should maybe be filled with a bigger logo, please know you were made fun of in the company Slack.
Make it pop. No one knows what this truly means. This is one of the most perplexing things a graphic designer will ever hear. I've heard, I think does this apply to like copy as well? I feel like writing could be such a, we're getting a lot of heads. Okay, good. It's a feeling, I'm sure, the feeling of reading something or looking at something and, you know, it's popping off the page. It's quite a beautiful thing. But there are, you know, just hearing it, I've never been able to make it pop. Have you ever been? I've never done it before.
If I could figure out what it actually, I don't know, just pull it out of my mind, maybe that's where AI can come in.
Yes,
AI
true.
can make it pop.
AI can make it pop. That's the key. But no, it's just a phrase. It's one of the classic phrases that we love to not hear. So yeah, it's there are better ways of going about making something a bit more exciting. Yeah.
Again, if you were the one to deliver the information to a designer that you would like to see something, you know, popped in a project, you were made fun of in the company Slack.
I have never been in a company Slack before, and if anyone could invite me to theirs, I would really like to see some of the gossip channels that are out there that I'm sure exist.
Oh, as a freelancer, God, I miss the gossip of a Slack channel. Man, it's good in there. So this last part is something that I feel like truly isn't something that is talked about often in our space, is overstepping boundaries, especially when you're hiring creative people. So you hired us for a reason, and we are maybe not experts, but I think with our experience, you know, we could say it. So generally, I like the idea of working with the creative people in your life. Don't try to work against them. And we're not going to other departments and telling them how to do their jobs. So a particular phenomenon that I've experienced in my industry, and I know this is common across a lot of other industries, but man, is it still prevalent in design, is generally stepping into a project that we might not have the creative authority to do so. In the music industry, this is typically done by men towards women, non-binary people, and other marginalized gender identities, and people not knowing to stay in their own lane. Just because you're in charge of a campaign doesn't necessarily give you the creative authority to insert an unwarranted opinion into the project to feel like you contributed something.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the don'ts, but what do we want to do to empower creatives to make authentic work, right? And it's pretty simple. We've just got up here: trust, encourage, listen, and appreciate, right? This is our kind of method to getting authentic work that we think will truly be worthwhile for both parties, right? The client and the designer or the creator, right? So trusting is obviously nice and simple, just like having faith in the creator, understanding that they are much more online than they may seem. If it's in the content world, they see a lot of the stuff that you might miss. And just really, understanding that the creator has a good idea of what they're doing. And I think especially designers, and in the design scene specifically, that graphic designers should know, right, what is good design. It may seem experimental, it may seem a bit like risky, some of the work that they may produce, but what they are producing is good if they're showing it to you. I truly think that, right? If a designer can look at their work and say it's good and they want to show you that, then you'd really want that client to have the trust back. And encouragement, every designer wants to hear that their thoughts are good, right? It's important to make sure that that relationship is really strong by doing that. Listening and appreciating, right? All of this is just trying to build up the idea that creative people are worth being around, right? They're worth having on the team, and they're really important in the process of working with. Because I think we make pretty good stuff, Kel. I think we do a good shot at it. So it's nice to kind of have that full trust in the project. It just makes it more fun for us as well, right?
Definitely. And I think that's like the one thing that I ever try to impart on other designers is that we get to work a really cool job. Yeah. And every day we wake up, we're like, God, I get to do graphic design today. My life rules. And one thing that I really try to get people to take away, and it applies to any job, is that I try to have fun with what we do. It's graphic design. We are not emergency room doctors. Nobody is dying on the table here. And I can tell when when I'm looking at a new designer's work, or I'm looking at a portfolio for a recommendation for a project, I can tell when a designer had fun with something, that they really leaned into it and just let it go. And that is something that is authenticity. That is so hard to replicate, and it is something that I am begging. Let yourself lean into that. Graphic design is supposed to be fun. Have fun with your own work, your portfolios, whether it's something, even if you're working just a very corporate, stuffy design job. We've all been there. It's okay to have a little fun every once in a while.
Yeah, I think treating it as like a form of like self-expression and being able to design just for yourself rather than designing always with the client in mind, right? I think a lot of the time we can get lost in the idea that graphic design is client first and then design second, right? Like it's always about the brief and how we can fulfill that. I used to do this thing called Design Chef, which is this little Twitch live stream I did where I would dress up as a chef and do a little song and stuff. It was wild, guys. And then I would give everyone like a challenge, a 60-minute long challenge. We would all design together in that time frame just based off that challenge, and then we would review it at the end. And the amount of like first-time designers who jumped in and had so much fun, and especially the amount of like experienced designers who would send messages being like, this is the first time I've had fun in a very long time, right? Just being able to sit down for 60 minutes, not care about what anyone else thinks about the work, and just be able to make something for the sake of making something. I think that is such a big part of the authenticity, right? And like when you're working with designers and working with creatives, making them feel that same kind of like level of self-expression through their work, and stuff that they'd just be happy attaching their name to. And they could say, this is me, this is my style, this is what I do. And I'm kind of like just working with someone else to express that at the same time, yeah? Yeah.
Absolutely. Creativity is such a vulnerable process. You're really kind of laying the inner workings of your mind out, and people are going to look at it and go, oh, I don't like that. How is that going to feel inside? We lay our souls out on the computer, and sometimes we just have to be like, yeah, you're right. It is ugly. It's fine. And that's a hard thing. And that's why, like, when we talk about cultivating these relationships and encouraging the creative people in our lives, we're encouraging them emotionally and mentally just to make everybody else's life more beautiful. We live sometimes in horrible traps inside, but like, on the outside, we bring so many beautiful things into this world. And, you know, our brains are wired a little different. And so if you guys would like, you know, every once in a while, if you'd like to take a walk with us into our very colorful world, you might end up enjoying it.
Yeah, we hope this is a refreshing take, right, on what could be a very like, kind of corporate design world, right? This is very much like, I think at least that what the new wave of designers are kind of shifting towards is at least what like I think my audience resonates with the most, like a really sense of like engaging with yourself and engaging with how you want to design rather than how the world wants you to design, right? So yeah, we're nearly at the end of the talk, but just some general things to leave you with. We've talked a bit about trends already, but at the end of the day, I think the most important thing is the authenticity, right? That's truly, I think, is truly what the most trending thing is. You see it a lot in content creators, you see it a lot in designers, and I'm going to tell you, if I see one more brand try and start a trend online and like a TikTok trend or something like that, I've yet to see it work. I don't know. I've yet to see it
Maybe
work.
one day.
Oh, yeah. The most recent trend that I've seen is this baby being held by its parent, and they ask the kid if they want to go to the Four Seasons Hotel, and the kid says, me. And that's now trending, right? Like, you can't come up with this stuff. Like, that's an authentic part of the child, yeah? So, yeah.
I think that's all.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having us, guys.